Grace Sinclair was beyond bored. No, that didn't quite capture it. She was in the midst of a boredom so intense, it felt as though it could unravel the very fabric of space-time. Her tentacles hung limply over the monitoring station of the Celestial Seeker, tapping random buttons now and then, just to make sure they still functioned. Another day of watching absolutely nothing unfold in the vast emptiness of space, she muttered to herself. Her secondary voice box chimed in with a touch of sarcastic melody. Why did I ever choose deep space monitoring again? Oh, right, because someone told me it would be adventurous. The monitoring room hummed around her, the familiar symphony of beeps and whirs that had long since lost any thrill, like watching paint dry on a Kroganix slug. Grace's third eye barely opened, while the other two were glazed over from the constant flood of data on her hollow screens. But then, something unexpected happened. At first, she thought it was a hallucination. The signal came so suddenly and with such force that she slapped herself with one of her tentacles, just to make sure she wasn't imagining it. Jake Parker, sitting at a neighboring station, shot her a puzzled look. The readings couldn't be correct, could they? She recalibrated, ran 3 diagnostics, even asked the ship's AI to verify the data. No way, no freaking way, Grace's voice cracked with excitement. All 3 of her eyes were now wide open, locked on the screen. Computer, confirm signal pattern. The AI's usual monotone voice responded with precision. Signal pattern confirmed. Lieutenant Sinclair match found in theoretical archives, 99.97% probability of human origin. Grace burst into laughter. Humans? Really? What's next? A unicorn-class starship powered by rainbow dust? But even as she joked, her tentacles were flying over the control panel, gathering more data. The signal was strong, clear, unmistakably artificial, and it matched every model they had of human technology. Just then, the doors to the monitoring room swooshed open with an unnecessarily dramatic flare, and in strode Ethan Thompson. Grace had always thought he looked like what would happen if you crossed a military manual with a peacock and gave it legs. His ceremonial headrests were polished to a blinding shine, and his uniform sported so many medals that it probably counted as light armor. Lieutenant Sinclair, he boomed, apparently never having learned to speak at a normal volume. The ship's AI tells me you found something interesting. Please tell me it's not another space whale mating ritual. The last time we recorded one of those, half the crew needed therapy. Grace excitedly waved her tentacles at the screens. Sir, you're not going to believe this, but we've detected what appears to be a human ship. Ethan Thompson's headrest deflated slightly, a sure sign of surprise, the closest thing to raising an eyebrow for him. Lieutenant, have you been drinking Zoral juice again? You know that stuff makes you hallucinate that you're a quantum physicist. No, sir, Grace replied, shaking her head. I'm completely sober. Look at these readings. She pulled up a detailed analysis on the main view screen. The energy signature, communication frequencies, and propulsion patterns, they all matched the theoretical models in their database. And before you ask, yes, I've triple-checked everything. Unless this is some elaborate prank by the universe, we're looking at genuine human technology. Ethan Thompson's crest slowly reinflated as he studied the data. His 6-fingered hand stroked his chin thoughtfully, making the bioluminescent spots on his neck pulse with curiosity. Well, well, well. It seems the myths might not be myths after all. Have you tried hailing them? Not yet, sir. I thought I should confirm with you first, considering, we might be about to make first contact with a species that half the galaxy believes is just a tall tale to get kids to eat their vegetables. Good thinking, Lieutenant, Ethan Thompson replied. Though I must say, if humans are real, I'm going to win a lot of money in the officer's betting pool. And my mate will finally have to admit that my collection of human artifacts isn't just, as she put it, expensive space junk. Grace couldn't suppress a grin. Sir, with all due respect, that broken food replicator you bought at that sketchy auction still probably isn't a genuine human toaster. We'll see about that, Lieutenant. We'll see about that, Ethan Thompson said, his crest fully extended, a clear sign of both excitement and plotting how he would gloat over this discovery. Well, what are you waiting for? Open a channel. Let's see if humans are really as crazy as the stories say they are. Grace turned back to her console, her tentacles trembling with anticipation as she prepared to send the first contact signal. She couldn't help but wonder if this was what it felt like to stand on the edge of history, about to leap into the unknown. Or maybe she was about to make a fool of herself in front of the entire crew. Either way, at least it wasn't boring anymore. The main conference room of the Celestial Seeker was packed tighter than a Martian sardine can. Not that anyone there knew what that was. Grace sat near the front, nervously twirling a datapad with her tentacles, watching her crewmates file in. The room buzzed with excitement, the hum of anticipation making the ship's harmonic stabilizers work overtime. Ethan Thompson stood at the front, his head crest fully extended in that familiar pose of, "I'm about to make a very important announcement." Behind him, a holographic display showed the signal data that had thrown the entire ship into chaos. "Attention, crew of the Celestial Seeker!" Ethan Thompson's voice sliced through the chatter like a plasma torch through butter. "As most of you have probably heard through our extremely efficient rumor mill, we have detected what appears to be a human vessel." The room erupted in chaos. The room erupted in a chaotic symphony of voices, clicks, and various biological sounds that frankly probably shouldn't be mentioned in polite conversation. "Impossible!" Chief Engineer Daniel Brooks shouted, her crystalline body shimmering with agitation, catching the light as if reflecting her emotions. "Humans are nothing but myths. Next, you'll claim the Great Space Chicken is real too." From the back of the room, Security Officer Michael Davis raised all four of his arms, a mischievous grin on his face. "Actually, I have a great aunt who swears she traded with humans once," he said, "though she also insists she arm-wrestled a black hole and won, so maybe not the most reliable source." "If I may," Dr. Sophia Mitchell interjected, gliding forward in her hover chair. "While humans have long been dismissed as mythical, there's substantial evidence that suggests otherwise. Consider the artifacts we've uncovered and the consistent stories across different species folklore." Grace quickly pulled up her research notes on the main display. "Dr. Sophia Mitchell is right," she affirmed. "Look at these historical records. The Andromeda archives mention a species that could survive extreme temperatures and digest almost anything. The Orion scrolls describe beings who converted their planet's nuclear weapons into energy sources. And let's not forget the most ridiculous claim," added Communications Officer Hannah Robinson, her bioluminescent patches glowing with amusement. "They supposedly consume stimulants that could kill other species, just to stay awake longer." Ethan Thompson cleared his throat, which sounded more like a small engine sputtering to life. "Whether or not we believed in humans before doesn't matter now," he stated firmly. "The signal we've detected matches every theoretical model we have, and more importantly, they've responded to our hails." A stunned silence fell over the room. "They what?" Grace's tentacles froze in shock. She had been so wrapped up in the initial discovery that she hadn't checked her station for updates. Ethan Thompson's crest rippled in satisfaction. "Yes, while we've been debating their existence, they've sent us a response. In perfect galactic standard, no less. They've requested permission to establish visual contact." Dr. Sophia Mitchell's antennae twitched, vibrating with excitement. "This is groundbreaking. Do you realize what this could mean for xenobiology, for our understanding of galactic history, for my research grant? It means we could all be about to die," Chief of Security Maximus Ironheart muttered, his scales shifting to a worried shade of purple. "Every story about humans involves some kind of impossible survival situation. They supposedly breathe toxic gases for fun." "No," Grace couldn't resist. "Well, technically, oxygen is toxic to most species. We just evolved to process it differently." "Not helping," Lieutenant Maximus Ironheart growled. Ethan Thompson raised his hand, signaling for quiet. "I understand everyone's concerns. Yes, if the stories are true, humans are incredibly dangerous. They come from a death world with gravity that would crush most of us. They can survive radiation levels that would turn our great-grandchildren into soup. And yes, they apparently invented something called coffee, which sounds terrifying." He paused, letting the suspense build, his crests glowing slightly. "But think about it. If they wanted to harm us, why respond diplomatically? Why not just show off these supposedly terrifying abilities?" His eyes sparkled with intrigue. "No, I believe this is a chance to solve one of the galaxy's greatest mysteries." "And when you're right about humans being real," Grace added with a grin, "that too." Ethan Thompson nodded, his excitement now clearly evident. "Now, I'm not forcing anyone to take part in this first contact, but I am going to proceed with establishing communication. Any volunteers?" Grace's tentacles shot into the air before she could stop them. Around the room, Several others hesitantly raised their various appendages. Dr. Sophia Mitchell's hover chair even lifted slightly, betraying her excitement. Well then, Ethan Thompson said, his crests glowing proudly. Let's make history, Lieutenant Sinclair. Return to your station and prepare for visual contact. Dr. Sophia Mitchell, you'll handle cultural protocols, everyone else. Back to your posts. And someone please tell engineering to stop hiding in the ventilation shafts. We can all see Officer Daniel Brooks's crystal glow. As the crew dispersed, Grace overheard snippets of conversation, from eager speculation to prayers to various deities. She caught up with Ethan Thompson by the door. Sir, what if the stories are true? What if they really are as extraordinary as the legends say? Ethan Thompson's crests rippled, an expression that could have been amusement or indigestion. Then, Lieutenant, we're about to have one very interesting day, and I'm about to make a lot of credits. Grace watched, a mix of amusement and concern on her face, as Chief Engineer Daniel Brooks triple-checked the environmental suits. The crystalline engineer flickered through a spectrum of colors that would put a quantum rainbow to shame. Are you sure these suits will protect us from human-level gravity? Daniel Brooks asked, her voice cracking like shattering crystal. Their ship's readings suggest they operate in 9.8 m per s squared. That's practically a death sentence. Ethan Thompson examined his suit, which looked like someone had designed a spacesuit by crossing it with a tank. The gravitational compensators should handle it. Though I must admit, these suits make me feel like a stuffed Glorin at a fancy dinner party. Dr. Sophia Mitchell hovered nearby, her antennae twitching as she documented everything. Fascinating. The human vessel's hull is composed of materials we've only theorized about, and their power output? It's beyond our current scales. Grace adjusted her tentacle sleeves while monitoring the latest scan results. Speaking of their ship, you all need to see this. She turned to the computer, display full scan analysis of the human vessel. A holographic image materialized in the center of the preparation room. It showed a sleek vessel that somehow managed to appear both elegant and absolutely intimidating. Data points floated around it. Around the ship, most of the crew's scientific team began questioning their sanity. That can't be right, muttered Security Officer Michael Davis, his forearms crossed, his face skeptical. According to these readings, their life support systems are maintaining an atmosphere that would be toxic to most known species. And is that water just floating around inside their ship in liquid form? Correct, Grace confirmed, gesturing at the data with her tentacles. They're literally swimming in a mixture of nitrogen, oxygen, and various trace gases that would kill half the known galaxy, and apparently they like it that way. Ethan Thompson examined the crew manifest they'd received from the human ship. Their captain's name is Alexandra Chen, he noted, his tone neutral. They've requested a face-to-face meeting in their ship's conference room, which they've graciously offered to adjust for our environmental needs. How thoughtful of them to accommodate us in their death chamber, Daniel Brooks mumbled, her crystalline form vibrating with nervous energy. Dr. Sophia Mitchell's hover chair spun in circles, her antennae practically quivering with excitement. This is unprecedented. Their technology shows signs of quantum manipulation, and what are these, coffee makers? She gestured toward the data, clearly fascinated. The energy readings from those devices are troubling. Contact team selection time, Ethan Thompson declared, his crests extending to their full diplomatic position. Obviously, I'll be leading the team, Lieutenant Sinclair, since you made first contact. You're with me, Dr. Sophia Mitchell. We need your expertise in xenobiology. What about security? Michael Davis asked, flexing all four of his arms in what was probably an attempt at intimidation. Yes, you're coming too, Ethan Thompson said. And Daniel Brooks, will need your engineering knowledge. Those human systems aren't going to analyze themselves. Daniel Brooks made a sound that could only be described as glass-shattering. Oh, joy. I've always wanted to die while examining impossible technology. Grace pulled up the safety protocols on her datapad. All right, everyone listen up. Standard first contact procedures have been modified for this unique situation. She began reading through the protocol. Rule 1, no touching anything without scanning it first. Rule 2, if you see a human consuming something, do not, under any circumstances, try it yourself, even if they offer. Dr. Sophia Mitchell gave a disappointed sigh, despite lacking any conventional facial features, especially if they offer. Especially if they offer, Grace confirmed. Rule 3, she continued, maintain suit integrity at all times. The human environment is essentially a carefully maintained death zone for us. Rule 4. No betting on human capabilities. And that's directed at you, Commander. Ethan Thompson's crest drooped slightly, his expression one of mock annoyance. You're no fun, Lieutenant. Finally, Rule 5. All observations must be recorded for scientific purposes, Dr. Sophia Mitchell. That means your personal commentary about how exciting everything is must be saved to a separate file. The xenobiologist, Annie, looked deflated. But what about my memoir? As the team completed their final equipment checks, the ship's AI made an announcement, incoming transmission from the human vessel. Grace's tentacles moved swiftly across the console, pulling up the message. They're sending us their docking preferences, and wait a minute, what's this? They're asking if anyone on our crew has any allergies or dietary restrictions, so they can prepare refreshments. Daniel Brooks's crystalline form paled, becoming nearly transparent. They want to feed us? Are they planning to poison us with their Death World cuisine? Actually, Dr. Sophia Mitchell interjected, her tone thoughtful. Offering food is a common diplomatic gesture across many species. Though I must admit, I'm curious about their definition of edible. Ethan Thompson straightened, his ceremonial crest now fully extended. All right, final checklist. Everyone, environmental suits, check translation modules, check emergency teleport beacons, check wills and final testaments. Shh. He paused for a moment, grinning. Just kidding. His crest rippled with amusement. Mostly. Now remember, everyone, Ethan Thompson said, his tone growing serious again. We're about to make history. Try not to stare too much at the humans. Don't mention anything about their gravity being terrifying. And please, Daniel Brooks, try not to crystallize in panic if they do something impossible. The engineer made a sound like tinkling wind chimes. No promises, sir. Grace did one final check of her equipment, her tentacles moving with practiced efficiency as she watched her teammates prepare. She couldn't help but feel a strange mix of excitement and trepidation. They were about to meet creatures that, until today, had been considered nothing more than myths. Beings who supposedly turned their planet's deadliest features into comfortable living conditions. Well, she muttered to herself, at least it's not boring anymore. The celestial seeker glided through space with all the grace of a nervous Kroganix butterfly. Grace watched from her station as the distance between their ship and the human vessel gradually shrank. The human ship, which they now knew was called the Terra Venture, looked surprisingly elegant for something built by so-called Deathworlders. Distance to human vessel, 10,000 units, the ship's AI announced, its voice, if anything, slightly shaky. Analyzing approach vector warning. Human ship's energy readings are confusing. Ethan Thompson stood at the command center, his crest twitching with each status update. Confusing how? He demanded. The readings suggest they're using controlled fusion reactions, the AI responded. The bridge crew collectively gasped. Daniel Brooks' crystalline form briefly turned a shade of green that usually indicated either profound respect or imminent illness. Approaching 8,000 units, the AI continued. Receiving transmission from Terra Venture. The main view screen flickered to life, and for the first time, the crew of the Celestial Seeker saw a human face. Captain Alexandra Chen smiled at them and said, "Greetings, Celestial Seeker. We're honored to make your acquaintance. I hope our approach vector meets with your approval." Grace noticed something strange. "Sir," she whispered to Ethan Thompson, "she's not wearing any protective gear. How is she not being crushed by their artificial gravity?" Before Ethan Thompson could respond, Captain Chen chuckled, as though she had heard Grace's question. "We can hear you, Lieutenant. And no, we don't need protective gear in our normal environment. Though I must admit, our gravity may be a bit different from what you're used to." "I understand why that might seem strange to you," Captain Chen remarked, her tone calm and understanding. The bridge crew exchanged shocked glances, and Jake Parker fainted, though no one really took notice. He did that at least twice a shift. "Approaching 5,000 units, the AI announced. Terra Venture is maintaining our speed perfectly. Their navigation systems are wait, sir. Are they using human reflexes to pilot the ship?" "That's correct," Captain Chen replied with a hint of amusement. "We do have automated systems, but for delicate operations, we prefer to use manual control." Communications Officer Hannah Robinson's bioluminescent patches pulsed with confusion. "But our records suggest humans have reaction times in whole seconds. How are you managing?" "Ah, a common misconception," Chen interrupted with a chuckle. "Would you like a demonstration?" Before anyone could respond, The Terra Venture performed a flawless spiral maneuver around the celestial seeker, perfectly matching the distance between the ships while completing a full orbit in under 10 seconds. The crew stood in stunned silence as the human ship returned to its original position as if nothing had happened. "Show-offs," Daniel Brooks muttered, but her crystalline form was glowing with what looked like admiration. "Distance holding at 1,000 units, the AI reported. Docking procedures ready to commence. Warning, human ship's artificial gravity is..." "Captain Chen, are you certain these readings are accurate?" Ethan Thompson asked. "Absolutely," Captain Chen responded confidently. "We've adjusted the docking bay to 0.3 of our normal gravity to make you more comfortable. We thought starting at full Earth gravity might be a bit much for our first meeting." Dr. Sophia Mitchell's hover chair nearly bumped into the ceiling in excitement. "Fascinating. They can manipulate their gravitational fields with such precision. But wait, you mean your normal gravity is more than 3 times what you're offering us?" "That's right," Chen smiled. "We wouldn't want to overwhelm you on our first date." "Oh, sorry. Cultural reference there." Our xenolinguists are still fine-tuning the translation matrix. Grace's tentacles moved swiftly over her datapad as she recorded everything. Each new revelation about humans seemed to contradict their legends, yet it made them even more impressive. They weren't the savage, dangerous death-worlders of myth, but highly sophisticated beings who had mastered their harsh environment to such an extent that they could manipulate it on a whim. "Beginning docking procedures," the AI said, sounding almost resigned to the impossibility of the situation. "Warning, human ship is sending us cookies. Error. Unable to process this level of hospitality." Captain Chen laughed, causing several crew members to jump in surprise. "Just a small welcome gift. We believe in starting diplomatic relations on a sweet note. Don't worry. They've been specially prepared to be safe for your biology." Ethan Thompson's crest extended fully, clearly showing he was both in awe and trying his best to maintain dignity. "That's very thoughtful of you, Captain. We look forward to meeting you in person." "Likewise, Commander," Chen said warmly. "Our diplomatic team is ready to receive you whenever you're ready. We've adjusted the conference room's environment to match your ship's specifications, and our medical team is standing by in case anyone needs help with the gravity transition." As the final docking procedures took place, Grace couldn't help but notice how different this was from the terrifying stories she had read. Where were the brutal warriors who could survive in a vacuum? Where were the berserkers who drank toxic stimulants and shrugged off radiation? Instead, they had found a sophisticated civilization that had not only mastered its perilous environment, but had developed the ability to adjust it for the comfort of others. They weren't oblivious to their world's dangers. They were so acutely aware of them that they could control them with exact precision. "Docking complete," the AI announced. "Warning, human hospitality levels exceeding safety protocols. Recommendation, update first contact procedures to include sections on handling excessive thoughtfulness." Ethan Thompson straightened his uniform with renewed determination. "Well, team, this is it. Time to make history. Remember your training. Don't accept any drinks without scanning them first. And someone please wake up Jake Parker before he misses everything." As the contact team made final preparations to board the Terra Venture, Grace felt a growing sense that every textbook about humans would need a complete rewrite. They weren't the monstrous myths people had feared. They were far more fascinating. They were beings who had turned their greatest challenges into their greatest strengths. And apparently, they made some of the best cookies in the galaxy. The airlock hissed open with what felt like an unnecessarily dramatic flare. The contact team stood in their environmental suits, trying to maintain a dignified stance while secretly wondering if their wills were up to date. Ethan Thompson led the charge, his crest perfectly polished and standing at attention. "Remember," he whispered through the comm system, "we are representatives of the Galactic Science Council. Keep your composure." Right on cue, Dr. Sophia Mitchell's hover chair bumped into the airlock frame in her excitement, sending her spinning in circles. Sorry, just got caught up in the historical significance of this moment." The Human Welcoming Committee waited at the end of the docking tunnel. Captain Chen stood at the front, flanked by her senior staff. They were all smiling. Something the crew had been briefed on meant a welcome gesture, not a threat. Still, Grace couldn't shake the odd feeling of seeing so many teeth at once. "Welcome aboard the Terra Venture," Captain Chen said, spreading her arms in a gesture of greeting. "I hope the gravity adjustment isn't too uncomfortable." Daniel Brooks, whose crystalline form had been vibrating since they entered the human ship, steadied herself. "It's manageable," she said, though her voice betrayed a hint of uncertainty. "I must say the way you adjust gravity so casually is both terrifying and impressive," Grace remarked, still trying to wrap her mind around it. "This?" One of the human officers, identified by Grace's translator as Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez, waved it off. "You should see what we can do with gravity in the recreation deck. Zerg basketball is all the rage among the crew." Dr. Sophia Mitchell's recording devices powered up. "You intentionally remove gravity for recreation?" she asked, the shock evident in her voice. Rodriguez flashed a grin. "Would anyone like a demonstration?" "No!" The entire alien delegation shouted in unison, almost in perfect harmony. Captain Chen led the group toward the conference room, pointing out various ship features along the way. Grace couldn't help but notice that everything seemed built to withstand forces that would tear their own ships apart. The humans called it standard safety margins, but the aliens couldn't help but think of it as engineering overkill. "Please make yourselves comfortable." Chen gestured toward the conference room, where chairs had been custom modified for the various body types of the alien delegation. It was a thoughtful touch that contradicted everything they'd expected. "Now then," Ethan Thompson began, his crests assuming their diplomatic stance, "we have many questions about your species, and—" His voice trailed off when a sudden strange smell filled the room, followed by a warning light on a nearby panel. Rodriguez quickly checked the readings. "Oh, don't mind that," he said casually. "Someone in the mess hall just tried to make toast again." The alien delegation stared in shock. "You voluntarily crawl through your ventilation system?" Daniel Brooks asked, her voice nearly cracking. "How else would we maintain it?" Rodriguez asked, genuinely puzzled. "Maintenance drones," Daniel Brooks suggested weakly. "Anything that doesn't involve sending squishy organic beings into tight spaces." The humans exchanged amused glances. "Where's the fun in that?" the dusty crew member asked before being quickly ushered out. Dr. Sophia Mitchell's hover chair hummed with excitement. "This is extraordinary. Your species doesn't just survive in harsh conditions, you actively seek them out. The psychological implications alone." "Speaking of psychological implications," Chen interrupted smoothly, "would anyone like some refreshments? We've prepared a variety of safe options for all biological types." The aliens watched, fascinated and slightly horrified, as the humans casually consumed their refreshments. Grace's tentacles curled in shock when Rodriguez downed something called hot sauce, which, according to their scanners, contained capsaicin. "You just willingly consumed a chemical irritant?" Grace blurted out. "Oh, this?" Rodriguez grinned. "It's nothing. You should try the ghost pepper version. It's even stronger." Daniel Brooks' crystal structure shifted, displaying stress patterns that had never been recorded before. "Perhaps we should move on to discussing technological exchange," Ethan Thompson suggested, eager to change the subject before anyone else could elaborate on human dietary habits. The meeting continued with a blend of diplomatic dialogue and cultural exchange, punctuated by moments that left both sides questioning the other's sanity. The aliens were horrified to learn that humans regularly stayed awake for extended periods, sustained by something called caffeine. Meanwhile, the humans found it utterly amusing that the aliens viewed their casual relationship with gravity as something borderline supernatural. "So, let me get this straight," Grace said, gesturing in disbelief. "You not only survive on a death world, but you've turned its most dangerous aspects into conveniences." "Pretty much," Chen nodded. "Necessity is the mother of invention, after all." "Is this mother of invention another terrifying human deity we should know about?" Dr. Sophia Mitchell asked earnestly, causing several humans to choke on their drinks. As the meeting continued, Grace's preconceived notions about humans were completely shattered. They weren't the brutal warriors of legend. Instead, they were something far more fascinating. They were problem solvers who viewed the impossible as a challenge, engineers who had turned the harsh conditions of their world into comfortable living spaces, and explorers who treated the dangerous unknown as an invitation rather than a warning. "I must admit," Ethan Thompson said as the meeting began to wrap up, "you are nothing like our legend suggested." "Oh," Captain Chen raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "Well, for one thing, you're far more terrifying," Ethan Thompson said, his crest rippling with amusement. "Our legends portrayed you as simple brutes. The reality, that you've mastered and commercialized death world conditions, is far more impressive and concerning." "We'll take that as a compliment," Chen laughed. "Now, who's ready for a tour of our engineering deck? We've got some fascinating experiments running in the high-gravity testing chamber. The alien delegation shared a collective look of resignation. It was going to be a very interesting day. Just as the crew was laughing about Rodriguez's explanation of extreme sports, the ship-wide alert suddenly caught everyone off guard. Quantum anomaly detected, both ships' AI announced in unison. Gravitational disturbance approaching critical levels. Grace's tentacles instinctively reached for the nearest support beam as the artificial gravity fluctuated. Through the viewport, she could see space itself beginning to twist, stars stretching in ways that made her third eye want to shut down. "Status report," Ethan Thompson barked, his crest flattening in alarm. Captain Chen was already moving, her fingers flying across the control panels with that impossible human speed. "Spatial rupture forming between our ships," she said, urgency in her voice. "The gravitational disturbance is... shear could tear both vessels apart. Celestial Seeker structural integrity at 60% and falling," Daniel Brooks reported, her crystalline form flickering between panic-induced colors. "Our gravitational compensators weren't designed for this kind of stress." "Then it's a good thing you're on a human ship," Rodriguez grinned, showing far too many teeth for someone facing imminent death. "Captain, permission to do something incredibly stupid and dangerous?" Rodriguez asked. "Granted," Chen replied without hesitation. "Just try not to break too many laws of physics this time." Grace watched in amazement as the humans sprang into action. Rodriguez sprinted to an engineering panel while Chen coordinated with both crews. The rest of the human bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, as if dealing with spatial anomalies was just another Tuesday for them. "We're going to extend our gravitational field around your ship," Chen explained quickly. "Our compensator can handle the strain." "That's impossible," Daniel Brooks protested. "The power requirements alone would..." "Welcome to humanity," Rodriguez shouted over his shoulder. "Making the impossible possible since we first decided walking upright seemed like a good idea." "Captain, ready to channel power from the fusion core," Rodriguez called. The view outside the window became even more disturbing as the human ship's gravitational field expanded. Grace felt her tentacles trying to move in several directions at once, as space itself seemed to hiccup. "It's working," Dr. Sophia Mitchell exclaimed from her hover chair, which was now floating sideways. "But the power drain must be enormous." "Nothing we can't handle," Rodriguez assured her casually, while rerouting what appeared to be enough energy to power a small star. "Though we might need to cut back on the recreational gravity wrestling for a few days." Ethan Thompson's crests were spinning in confusion. "You use this much power for recreation?" "Focus, people," Chen commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Celestial Seeker, we need you to synchronize your shield harmonics with ours. Together, we can create a bubble stable, enough to ride this out." Grace and Daniel Brooks rushed to help, their previous terror forgotten in the excitement of working with human technology. The next few minutes were a blur of technical jargon, impossible physics, and what Grace was pretty sure were human swear words that the translator refused to process. When the anomaly finally passed, both ships were intact, their crews shaken but alive. Grace stared at her readings in disbelief. "You just channeled enough power to light up a solar system," she said to Rodriguez. "Turned it into a localized gravitational field that shouldn't be possible. And your biggest concern is having to postpone recreational activities?" "Well, the gravity wrestling tournament was scheduled for tomorrow," Rodriguez shrugged. "The crew gets cranky when we have to reschedule." Captain Chen smiled at the dumbfounded expressions of the alien delegation. "I think what my chief engineer is trying to say," she explained, "is that humans have a lot of experience turning catastrophes into inconveniences and making the impossible possible." Ethan Thompson, his crests now returning to their normal position, finally spoke up. "That too," he agreed. "Though I must say, your crew adapted remarkably quickly to our methods." Grace looked around at both crews, now mingling and exchanging stories about the experience. Humans and aliens working together to bend the laws of physics just enough to survive. Perhaps that was the real revelation about humans. Not that they were death world survivors or gravity defiers, but that they could take their impossible abilities and use them to protect others. "Well," she said, her tentacles finally relaxing. At least it wasn't boring anymore. The Galactic Science Council's hearing chamber was packed with representatives from 100 different species, all eager to hear about the official first contact with humans. Grace stood at the podium, her tentacles only slightly trembling as she delivered her report. And so we conclude, she said, we can confirm that humans are not only real, but are far more remarkable than our legends suggested. They don't just survive in death world conditions. They optimize them. They don't just endure high gravity. They treat it as a toy. And yes, they really do intentionally consume beverages containing chemical stimulants. A ripple of shocked murmurs spread through the chamber. One council member's bioluminescent spots actually shorted out. But most importantly, Grace continued, they've proven to be valuable allies. The gravitational technology they shared has already revolutionized our ship designs. Though I must note, their suggestion to add recreational gravity fluctuation zones has been met with mixed responses. Ethan Thompson, standing nearby with his crests polished to their highest shine, couldn't resist adding, and I won their entire ship's betting pool by proving humans were real, though I'm still not convinced about that toaster artifact. The council chambers erupted in discussion, with various species debating the implications of this extraordinary encounter. The implications of human contact were far-reaching, and Grace couldn't help but observe Dr. Sophia Mitchell in the corner, already sketching out plans for expeditions to explore other species that had once been deemed mythical. Mitchell was now convinced that if humans were real, the great space chicken might not be so far-fetched either. As Grace packed away her presentation materials, she received a message from Captain Chen. The humans were inviting their crew to something called a barbecue. The message came with at least 15 warning labels about the food and a guarantee that they would keep the gravity at comfortable levels this time. Grace couldn't help but smile, all three of her eyes sparkling with amusement. The galaxy was never going to be the same now that humans had entered the galactic community. But maybe that wasn't such a terrible thing. After all, someone had to show the rest of them how to turn the impossible into reality. And if nothing else, at least it certainly wasn't boring anymore.